Greetings, gentle viewers. Welcome to the Vlogmas edition of the Rewatcher's Diaries. Due to my work schedule, I can't promise a proper Vlogmas where I post a video for 12 days straight, but I do plan on posting 12 videos for the month of December, which I hope counts for something. Now, even though Squid Game has been on Netflix for a while and I'm very sure it's not trending, I've been wanting to make a video where I dive into the Enneagram types for the main characters in Squid Game. Apologies in advance if I pronounce these names wrong. For the sake of time, I am only going to go into the subtypes of a few characters, but for the most part, I'm just going to guess each character's core type and dominant wing. Major spoilers ahead for Squid Game, so if you haven't watched the series yet, go ahead and do so. To start things off, I'm going to talk about Song Gi-yeon, who I think is a type 9 wing 8. Sangyeon is someone who wants to have a peaceful life, but he's also protective of his daughter and his mom and wants to provide for them. The type 9 wing 8 is often called the comfort seeker, which I feel like very much describes Sangyeon, because the core desire of a type 9 is inner stability, and their core fear is loss and separation. Gion's motivation for getting into the death games is to make sure that he doesn't lose his time with his daughter, especially since she's moving to America. Sang-gyeon was once an employee of a car manufacturer, but he unexpectedly got laid off because of the company's mismanagement. He went on to partake in a strike that ended in a violent riot. After the death of one of his friends and coworkers, Gihan developed PTSD and basically fell asleep to his own needs, choosing to live a comfortable life rather than standing up for what was right. Throughout the games, Sung-gyeon showed signs of the Type 9's tendency of going along to get along, but at the same time, his Type 8 wing has him reaching out to those who are most vulnerable, almost like he wants to protect him. He reaches out to Oh Il-nam and Kang Sai-byuk. I'm really sorry again if I mispronounced these names. And he was more than okay with having people who were more likely to be dismissed on the team during the tug-of-war game. While he's by no means perfect, I feel like Gihon has a pretty average level of development as far as Type 9s go. After Sung-gyeon wins the Death Game tournament, he spends a whole year living as a bum, basically out of this really big sense of survivor's guilt. Who can blame him? However, his sense of justice finally kicks in when he sees that same person trying to scam someone into joining the games, and he decides to make the sacrifice of a desire to see his daughter in order to see justice redistributed, to take the Squid Game tournament down once and for all. It's a crazy mission, but hey, I feel like that's a really big level of development on his part. And personally, I can't wait to see how he chooses to go about it. Let's talk about Cho Sang-woo. I initially thought that Sang-woo was a type 6, but after watching Generation Ochi's video about him, I think that Sang-woo is actually more concerned about his reputation, which is a very type 3 thing to be concerned about. Sang-woo prides himself on his reputation. He's pragmatic and he isn't above taking shortcuts. He's not exactly the healthiest version of a type 3, I mean, obviously. And if I had to pick a dominant wing, I think that Sang-woo is a 3 wing too. Like a 3 wing too, his main motivation for competing in the death games is to provide for his mother, but he also borrows those type 2 tendencies of doing favors for others in the hopes of getting something in return. Other examples of unhealthy type 3 tendencies are Songwoo's sexism, his cutthroat attitude, and his sunken cost fallacy mentality. And while I think that some people might see this as a type 6 behavior, I see this as type 3 going into the blind spot, stagnation, security blanket tendencies, the unhealthy side of a type 6. This really shows during the marbles game when Songwoo starts to get paranoid. Moving on to Kang Byuk. For the longest time, I thought that she was a type 8 wing 9, but again, thanks to Generation Ochi's video, I actually think that she's a type 6 wing 7 counterphobic, albeit a very introverted version of it. While her character arc centers on her learning to be vulnerable, Kang Sa-byuk's main motivation is fear. She came from North Korea, and her ultimate goal for winning the Death Game tournament is to get her family to safety. There are a lot of times where Sa-byuk's fear is shown, but she chooses to put up this front of not being afraid. She shows signs of a Type 6's growth arrow when she moves to the positive side of a Type 9, when she becomes more trusting and less skeptical, and she knows who she can trust aside from herself. She starts to trust Gihon, for example, who is, a typical Type 9, and she also knows who to stay away from, which is a very Type 6 thing to do. Moving on to Ali Abdul, who I think is a Type 2 Wing 1. According to Funky MBTI Fiction on Tumblr, Type 2 Wing 1s are helpful busybodies who take pride in caretaking and being there for someone. They appear sweet and loving and giving, but it's important to remember that this is their defense mechanism against anticipatory rejection, to make themselves invaluable so people will feel hard-pressed to cut them out of their lives. Sense of self is oriented externally, defined by the roles they take on in service of other people, while being guided by a one-ish sense of integrity and morals. Ali's motivation, much like the other players, is to make sure that his family is taken care of. And he relies heavily on Song-woo in order to be safe, but also because, he is somebody who thinks that if he relies on Song-woo, he'll get something in return. When Ali confronts his boss in episode 2, he wants to be paid what he's owed, which I think shows a sign of a Type 2 going into Type 8 in stress. Speaking of Type 8, we have two people who are basically the same core type and the same core wing, but they act in completely different ways. So in the case of these two characters, I will have to go into their subtype. Specifically, I'm talking about Han Min-yo and Jung Duk-soo. Han Min-yo, who I like to call the Korean Karen, and Jung Duk-soo are both Type 8 Wing 7s. They both hate to be vulnerable. And they both lust for power and are not afraid to use underhanded tactics in order to make sure that they stay the top dogs in the Death Game tournament. At first, Han Min-yo acts a lot like either a Type 2 or a Type 3 in the way that she tries to model herself in a way that could please people. She tries to act in different ways in order to get what she wants. However, her primary motivation is survival. Unlike Sa-byuk, she is absolutely fearless, and when push comes to shove, she just becomes way aggressive instead of just, becoming scared. She channels that full Karen energy and takes charge whenever she gets the opportunity to do so. Besides that, Type 8s are in the gut triad, which all have to deal with underlying anger, and her anger is rooted in the fear of betrayal. And well, during the 5th game, she shows just what happens when somebody betrays her by canceling her life subscription, and Jung Duk-soo's as well. Jung Duk-soo concocts this idea that he wants to take out who's in charge and take over the Death Game tournament. He is the one who decides to thin the herd. And it's all part of a Type 8's constant need for power and control. So basically, Han Min-yo, Jung Duk-soo, Type 8 Wing 7s, but Han Min-yo is a sexual subtype, while Duk-soo is a self-preservation subtype. Now, I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about Ji-young because she's such a minor character, but given that she does have a video about her, I figured that I would, talk about her anyway. And I do like her. This is just my best guess, but I think that she's a type 7 wing 6. And I feel like for Jiang, she's open minded, someone who wants acceptance and belonging, but at the same time, she's not afraid to call out hypocrites when they act, all high and mighty, like that pastor character, whose name completely escapes me. She encourages Sae-byeok to dream big, and even if she acts all snarky and cynical, there's a part of her that comes off as almost optimistic. Even if she's not optimistic for herself, she tries to create some optimism for someone that she considers to be a friend. Finally, I'm going to talk about Oh Il Nam, who is also a type 7, but he's a type 7 wing 8. The reason I think that Oh Il Nam is a type 7 wing 8 is because he came up with the idea for the Death Game tournament to begin with, and he decided to put himself in the games as sort of his last hurrah before he kicks the bucket. It's a very unhealthy type 7 wing 8 thing to do, to create these games as a way to both have fun and also wield power over people. So he's not exactly the healthiest version of a type 7 wing 8, but there you go. So that's the Enneagram types of the main characters of Squid Game. If there's anyone that I missed or anyone who I think I should comment about, comment below and I will reply to the comments as best as I can and give my best insight. Coming up on Vlogmas is the Enneagram types of the main 6 Avengers. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring that notification bell so that you're the first to see that video when it pops up. Thank you for watching.